back. Prime Minister Modi has reached Italy for the G7 summit, making this his first trip abroad after swearing in as the Prime Minister for the third term. The summit has started and will be held from the 13th of June to the 15th in a luxury resort in Apulia, Italy. World leaders like US President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will also attend the 50th G7 summit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is also slated to join a session about the ongoing war in Ukraine. Top Indian officials, including External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, will accompany Prime Minister. Well, Prime Minister Modi is expected to meet with the Italian Prime Minister Meloni and the G7 group, which includes the US, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, Canada and Japan, and will focus on global stability, the Ukraine war and the conflict in Gaza as well. Italy, the current chair of the G7, has also invited leaders from various developing countries and international organizations to this summit. Prathamesh, my colleague, is joining us on the broadcast to talk more about this. Prathamesh, it's a very important visit, not only from the point of view that is the Prime Minister's first visit after his swearing in as the Prime Minister for a third consecutive term, but also for the fact that apart from security, trade and common business aspirations, security is also likely to be discussed with none other than the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, you are correct. The way this G7 summit is going to help India in various departments, like first of all, there was artificial intelligence. It will help in artificial intelligence because AI is playing a major role now in the country. Also, there is like a trading for trading. India need to boost, and for that, this will G7 summit is going to help. As after becoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi, this is his first outdoor trip, and he went to Italy for the G7 summit. In this, like different other countries fellows are also been invited in this summit. This summit has been started from 13th of this month and will end on the 15th. And so in this summit, the Italy Prime Minister is going to be host of this summit, and in the eyes of that Prime Minister of the Italy, this summit is going to take place, in which the India is also looking forward to participate in this summit, as they has also got invite. And after this, India will get really a good boost, and it will help India for the trading as well as in the other sector as well. If we talk about defense sector, it will help in AI sector, artificial intelligence. So in every of the sector it will help. Yes.
All right. Professor Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is joining us at this point in time. Professor Nalapat, no fancy questions. What does the G7 meet, and what is this consortium capable of when it comes to a number of agendas that they are getting together for?
Well, Vineet, the first point I'd like to say is that 6 of the 7 G7 members who are meeting are frankly in deep political trouble back in their countries. You have Rishi Sunak, for example, who's almost certainly headed for a very crushing defeat in the UK election. You have Macron, who has just lost comprehensively in the EU poll, and now he's taken a very big risk by ordering a national poll. And if he loses that, he's going to be a lame duck president for the rest of his term. You have Justin Trudeau, who's not popular in Canada at all. And then Scholz, extremely unpopular, because the fact that he has the German economy has been severely impacted by the fact that Scholz is supporting a complete cutoff of energy supplies from Russia. And it was these energy supplies that were enabling him and his companies to compete globally. So Kishida also is in trouble in Japan. That being the case, the only individual who's not in political trouble is Giorgia Meloni. And Giorgia Meloni has been very friendly with India, and she has established a very close relationship with Prime Minister Modi, and I think therefore she'll be very welcoming of Prime Minister Modi. The point is, Vineet, that the Quad is supposed to be an organization that is interested in technology, that's interested in new methods of dealing with issues concerning public health, etc. And I think it's important for all these issues to be comprehensively involving India. Now, some of these alliances that have been formed subsequent to the alliance of the Quad have not really got India on board. And I think it's important for India, especially for Indian companies, to get involved with the other Quad members and with their friends in a multiplicity of ways. And I'm sure that Prime Minister Modi is going to take that up as a priority, because let's face it, it's economics in command. Whether it's the G7, whether it is India, it's economics in command. And you have to have a good economic performance. All of them. Joe Biden needs a good economic performance if he's going to beat Donald Trump. Rishi Sunak has got to show that his economic plan is working before the election, which is going to be held on July 4. It's an almost impossible task. But the point is that I think the effort is going to be that the economy and is going to be focus of the Prime Minister. And I think it's important to ensure that India work seamlessly with the members of the EU where economy is concerned. And in that, of course, India will definitely expect a fair deal. It's not going to expect a one-sided deal, such as, frankly, it has been offered in the past, including by the European Union and the UK. It's got to be a fair deal. And if it's a fair deal, it's good for both sides. Getting India on board is important for Europe. It's important for the United States. So from that point of view, there's a lot to gain with skillful diplomacy at the G7, really putting the economy front and center, and secondly, security of the Indo-Pacific front and center. The G7 seems to have forgotten about the Indo-Pacific. It seems to have forgotten about the threat by a country that is several times more powerful than Russia, which is China. I think the presence of India will be a reminder that, please understand, this is the century where Asia is the most important continent. This is a century where the Indo-Pacific is by far more important than the Atlantic, because for a long time, the G7 has been absolutely obsessed with the Atlantic. And I'm sorry to say, a lot of the deliberations that took place yesterday were entirely talking about Europe. Just Europe, Ukraine, Russia, as though we were about 40, 50 years ago in a time warp. So I think the Prime Minister will ensure that there's a reality check, and he will ensure that there is smooth cooperation between India and these countries in fields that promote economic development.
Professor Nalapat, your impressions of what needs to be told to Canada at this point in time as well, because the G7 and the buzz around it is that the Prime Minister is obviously going to be rolling up his sleeves in front of Justin Trudeau.
Look, it's very clear by the fact that the Prime Minister has retained his national security team, especially the very capable and competent National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, a very trusted individual with vast experience. It is very clear, therefore, that the reports emanating from Canada and the United States, and the United States, there is going to be a trial held based on those reports that are emanating. It's very clear that India is completely not responsible for any of the allegations that are being made. That is the clear message that Prime Minister Modi has sent by retaining his top national security team, that any effort to link India and the Indian government at the highest level with whatever gang wars and other acts of violence have taken place in Canada is completely wrong. And I think the presence of the fact that Ajit Doval, one of the masters of intelligence gathering and this kind of activities, has been retained as National Security Advisor sends a loud message that India could not in any way have been involved in any of such activities, whether in Canada or the United States, and that they were gang activities in which India, certainly at the official level, certainly at the central and highest level, was not involved at all. That is a clear message the Prime Minister sent by announcing his retention of the National Security Advisor just previous to the meeting of the G7, where, yes, you're right, Justin Trudeau is going to be very much around, and he's very much going to try and peddle the Chinese fiction that India was involved at the highest level in these gangland murders.
All right. Professor Nalapat, also the Prime Minister is going there after being elected for the third consecutive time. What kind of agendas and what kind of direction do you think he will be willing to take? You know, you'll have the United Kingdom, the United States, and you've already mentioned that a number of these countries are politically unsettled at this point in time. What kind of a clout does this give the Prime Minister since he's come back for the third term?
Look, people in India may say that he has come back for a third term with less than a majority. The fact is the NDA has come back. And contrary to all kinds of inspired reports, the NDA in its present form is, if not in an expanded form, is going to last for 5 years. Prime Minister Modi is the unanimous choice of the NDA for continuing the prime ministership for the next 5 years. And he's by far the most popular politician in India. You can't say that for many of the political leaders. I don't want to be undiplomatic and use the word any of the political leaders, but many of the political leaders whom he is going to be meeting in the G7. You can't say that at all. So I think he is coming with a strong hand. India as a democracy has shown that it's a genuine democracy. And I would remind those in the United States at higher levels, those in Canada, those in other parts of in Europe, for example, who cast doubts on the accuracy of Indian democracy and who doubted the stability of Indian democracy. What are they saying now? Indian democracy has ensured that Prime Minister Modi is there for a third term. It has at the same time reduced the BJP to less than a majority, but it has given Prime Minister Modi very strong reformist allies such as Chandrababu Naidu and very long-term reliable partners in the shape of Nitish Kumar, who frankly I don't believe he's going to make one more somersault. That would be just one crossing a red line, and I doubt that 95% of his party would follow him were he to do so. I believe Nitish Babu is a very seasoned politician. He won't do it. So he is going from a position of strength, and I'm sure he's got a clear agenda where economic development and the security of the Indo-Pacific is very clearly marked, and he's going to be talking about that agenda individually and perhaps in groups to the G7 and other leaders whom he is going to be meeting. It's the fact that he has been invited is a slap in the face to Justin Trudeau. It's frankly a slap in the face to all those people in the United States who have been casting aspersions on Indian democracy under Prime Minister Modi and who have been casting all kinds of wild allegations against the Indian government. It's a slap in the face. Giorgia Meloni is a good friend of India. Giorgia Meloni has got a very close relationship with Prime Minister Modi, and I think he's going there from a position of strength.
Right. Absolutely right, sir. In fact, we're also going to cut across to my colleague Asavri, who's joining us from the newsroom. Asavri is in fact going to give us the details about what the Prime Minister's schedule is going to be like and what's in store for him in the next couple of days for the G7 summit happening in Italy from 13th June to the 15th of June. Asavri, over to you.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Vineet. Of course, what we have over here is the itinerary of the Prime Minister and what exactly he's expected to do in the course of the 3 days that he is over there. And all this information that we have is as per sources. So we're going to take you through the entire day. Of course, the Prime Minister has arrived in Italy, but we of course have the itinerary over here for the PM's G7 meet, and we're going to in fact take a closer look at it. So let's take a look at 4:30 p.m. IST when the PM. 5:15 p.m. IST, there's going to be a welcome photo with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. So that's, of course, going to take place at 5:15. When we talk about 5:30 to 9 p.m., a G7 outreach summit is expected to take place. 9:20 to 9:45 p.m. IST, bilateral meeting with the German Chancellor is expected. It's on the cards. 9:50 to 10:10 p.m. bilateral meeting with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is also on the cards as per sources. 11 to 11:25 bilateral meet with the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida is also expected. 12 o'clock to 1 a.m. IST, cultural performances are going to take place. And when we talk about 2:05 is when the Prime Minister is expected to depart from Italy. So, of course, that is what's there on the cards. 2:15 to 2:40 p.m. The bilateral meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron is there on the cards. Of course, this is all the source-based information that we have for you. Back to you, Vineet.
All right. Mr. Ambassador Tripathi is also joining us on the broadcast to talk more about this. Ambassador Tripathi, if you're there with us? Okay, perhaps not. I'm going to go back to Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, in comparison to what we saw in G20 and the time that has lapsed in terms of what India promised and what India did and what India envisaged and how the world, in fact, responded to India's prowess in organizing and conducting the G20, where do we stand today vis-a-vis in juxtaposition to G7?
The fact is that the G20 under Prime Minister Modi was an unqualified success. A declaration that was unanimous was adopted, which frankly was not expected by almost everybody. It was done, it was unanimous, and even the Chinese had to basically agree to that declaration because the Russians were very clear that that declaration needed to be accepted. And you'll remember that Prime Minister Modi has been very firm where India and Russia are concerned and has stood by the Indian interest and refused to succumb to pressures not to buy Russian oil and gas. Germans are killing their economy. Olaf Scholz has become unpopular for one reason and one reason only: the economic shocks caused by the Ukraine war and the sanctions that Mr. Scholz, Chancellor Scholz, has been an enthusiastic proponent of. The impact of the cutoff of Russian resources from Germany has been catastrophic. The impact on inflation has been severe across the world, but also in Europe. And all these, every single politician, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it are all the other six members, they're all feeling the pain of the economic shocks caused to their own economies by the sanctions, the self-defeating sanctions and ineffective sanctions that they imposed on Russia. India stood firm under Prime Minister Modi, and India therefore will stand firm here also. I would like to see much greater involvement of India in some of the new structures that are coming up in the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, for example. India is an important element. And similarly, there are so many structures that are being considered, that are being thought of, and India needs to be an essential element. I am very confident that under Prime Minister Modi's guidance, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is going to go ahead and build such linkages, because let's be honest, Vineet, we need friend shoring. We need people, companies in friendly countries to come and work in India, because Prime Minister Modi says, make in India. He's not saying make by India, make in India. And I think that is going to be an important part of his message, that look, India is a great investment destination. He has continued Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who has been a trusted, associate of his in carrying out several of the investment-friendly policies. And I'm sure much more is going to be done by Prime Minister Modi guidance, under the guidance of Prime Minister Modi and Finance Minister Sitharaman. So you're going to see, in my view, the Indo-Pacific security is going to be front and center. Looming behind that is the threat and the challenge posed by China, and expansionist China. And secondly, the economy is going to be front and center, especially the need to decouple from China so that you don't have a situation in which your enemy, and I'm talking about every country that is represented there, essentially, especially India and the G7, where your enemy holds the trump cards. I think that is an important message that Prime Minister Modi is going to drive home, and I do believe that he is going to find a very receptive ear to those messages.
Professor Nalapat, appreciate, sir, you took out the time and lent a lot of deep perspective into this important summit. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.